Aloha! I am Web Captain Drew, and I am the host. So glad you can make it today. So, recently, we're going into our, 10 years of Sparrow Radio, and our pirate headquarters is relocating. So, we had to wrap everything up, and me and our CEO, Liz, we had discussed maybe doing a documentary about our media company, because we have done it for a really long time. So I was collaborating a little bit with ELLE. She's our mermaid queen and the host of Celebrity Adjacent, and I told her about it, and she said, are you going to do it or what? And I was like, well, I don't know, because a lot of my equipment's packed up, and I just don't think we can kind of really handle, that right now with moving and stuff. And she said, well, you could still do it. You could do it, with your phone. Well, once you've been doing a show for a long time with having, your studio and all the effects and, the things that make it easier to record, it's hard to go back to, recording on a lower quality. So I'm like, that's a good idea, but I didn't think that maybe I would want to do that. And then the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, it's kind of actually a good idea, because I'm tired of always having to edit and make everything so, try to do a really high quality video or podcast, whatever we're doing, because sometimes it's nice to just be able to for it to be easy. So when I started thinking about the podcast, which I haven't done the podcast in about a year, but I was the host of Podcast Island for about 8 years, so I have a big background and history with it. I thought, it kind of might actually be fun to do it, and if I could do it about a subject that I really like, then that would give me an opportunity to do the show again on an easier level. So when I was thinking about it, I'm like, because I've always had to do things that I thought people would be interested in to make it entertaining. And I would do, once a year, I would do the subject of paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts. That was what kind of but one time a year. I didn't try to oversaturate, and I try to do things that people I thought would, keep it interesting and always changing the subject. So this time I thought, I want to do my own commentary about the subject of paranormal, because it really interests. I've always been interested in it. I'm a sci-fi writer, and it's something since I was a kid that I always kind of thought was out there and real. I believed in it. I wasn't skeptical when it came to terrestrial life and the different things that we don't know about. So I was watching I have very few people that, as far as commentaries or people that do talk shows and stuff go, that I can really follow or like, because I don't know, it's just a weird thing. I'm a talk show host, but I don't like talk shows. So, but one of the things I do follow are the subject of paranormal, is people that do commentaries about it, or that discuss videos or different aspects of the ufology community. So one of the people that I found over the years that I think is really intelligent, and that has a lot of inside information about what UAPs are, and the discussion is very broad as far as what the government knows and what people think about different aspects of what it really is. And so I found Dr. Stephen Greer a long time ago, and I think that he definitely gives the best overview of the entire subject. He has a lot of smart ideas. He's done a lot. He's been in it for a really long time, and he's probably one of the top ufology people in the world when you get right down to it. And his CE5 is pretty well known amongst people that are very interested in the subject. So I was listening to one of his discussions, and he was discussing that if people on planet Earth or humanity itself, that one of the questions that people from the public ask a lot is well, if they're real, why don't they make themselves known? Why don't they come and talk to us? Why don't they introduce themselves, right? Which is a good question, and it's a viable question. He said that, or I'm paraphrasing here, something along the lines of that one of the reasons that they don't introduce themselves, or why they don't, land on the White House lawn or whatever, or actually somewhere public, is that maybe that we're not ready because we're not civilized enough, or that humans have to change their behaviors about a lot of things like war and or how we treat our environment. And so I thought, well, that's a good point, but the more I started thinking about it, it kind of bothered me. And usually when I listen to Dr. Greer talk, pretty much everything he says, which is rare for me, I agree with. Like, as far as being like a show host, I have a lot of my own ideas, and maybe some people might say I'm opinionated. I don't know, but I suppose being a talk show host, you kind of have to believe in what you're saying. I try to be very independent and in the middle, or bipartisan on a lot of things, but I have my own ideas about stuff. So I thought, wow, I kind of don't know if I agree with what he's saying about that, because the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, humanity, our Earth, our world, community is probably at the pinnacle of, as far as technology goes, and communicating with the people, everyone, being more of a globalized society. Some of these problems like war and famine, or environment, probably aren't going to get solved, because if they haven't been solved yet, they're not going to get solved. So it made me think that if I was talking to him, like doing an interview, I've interviewed a few people over the years, of course. I thought, man, if I was interviewing him, I would ask him this question again, but I would kind of almost propose it to him like, well, I don't know if I agree with that, because, if they're not going to come talk to us because we're not civilized, it's probably not going to happen ever. And my point in that is that the one thing that could maybe bring us to the next level, or to help fix things, is for them to show themselves what they are, who they are, and let us know what they know that we don't know about where we're from, the history of the universe, things that they probably do know if they're traveling light years to come and visit us. So the subject itself has definitely got a lot of different, maybe like gray areas that people don't agree on in the ufology community. So when you start looking at it as a whole, I thought this would be a really good subject for me to discuss on my new vlog, because I've pretty much discussed everything. And the one thing I have a lot of my own opinions and views about this subject, because it's something that interests me, and I've watched it and listened to it and researched it for years, since I was a kid, actually. And one of my relatives actually worked for the space agency, so that maybe sparked some interest in me as a young person, because for me it never was a question whether or not there was life out there beyond our planet, because if there wasn't, then why would we be sending rockets up to go check out space, or satellites, or space telescopes to look into the great beyond? Because there obviously is something out there. I think a lot of times skeptics want to reject the idea of extraterrestrial life because it's such a big subject. If there's not any proof in it, then why should I believe it? Well, I think that is the one thing, as far as humans go, that is going to change, because the government has acknowledged that this UAP thing is real, and they don't know what some of it is. And of course, if you're following the ufology or the ancient alien theory, you start to understand that some of the government people that work in the government, they don't know. Like, it's a need to know basis. Like, a lot of it is top secret. So this is another thing I find fascinating about the subject. And what I thought is that if I can do this show and just discuss it on the commentary on things that I think about it, maybe that would also bring in a different demographic of people that maybe have just rejected those ideas for a long time, because there's people from all different walks of life that are interested in this topic, and I think it is something that doesn't get dull or boring, because it is going to be the biggest story one day to ever be released. So we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back in a flash. All right, so I want to thank you for staying tuned there. One of the things I want to do with this show is it's a good way for me to showcase my music, so I want to be able to do that, and I hope you enjoy that, or whatever we add in here. I might bring up some of our old stuff. We used to discuss pop culture on my other show, and who knows, we can always throw stuff in there to change it up a little bit. But as I was saying, so one of the things that, like when I have been learning different things in different parts over the years of how to create videos, and learning different aspects of what is out there as far as content goes and stuff, is that sometimes you have to kind of come up with your own way of doing it. So this is definitely a new way for me to do this. I'm used to having somebody else film me, and one of the things when we did Podcast Island, it was a regular show that we had like our own setup script for. So when you're doing something like this, I think it's hard for some people to just talk and get out there put themselves out there like that, and it's taken me a really long time to get to this point. But one of the things I hope to be able to share with people, if I do this show long term, is that why I created the media company to begin with. I'm the co-founder, and Liz is the other co-founder, or we created, I should say. And some of the things that we wanted to do with the documentary that we're not going to do now, I kind of feel like it was like the ending. Well, you know, we had a decade of content creating, artwork, and collaborations, and I really would have liked to have done that. But this is another way that I can kind of also discuss what RumBullets was, and the RumBullets pirate ship. And as we pack everything up here, it's like the end of an era, really. You know, like, we've spent so much time building this business, and it's definitely not over. It's just maybe, like, you know, we were talking about with the UAP phenomenon, it's the new chapter, a new beginning. So sometimes when things change, you have to decide, is it okay to do things differently and go back to an older version of stuff, and maybe it won't be as good. But I kind of like this idea because it does give me a little more freedom, and being able to share what I experienced in the last 10 years creating a media business. So that's definitely part of it, but you have to excuse the boxes and the chaos, destruction around me as I film this, because we are in the middle of moving, and it's a lot of work when you have 10 years of stuff in your business and you're trying to put it all in boxes. You can't just stop. Like, you're constantly still trying to figure out how to make your platform go to the next level. You can't just stop it. And that's the difference between maybe having a regular business and being a creator or an artist or a musician, is that you're always thinking of like the next thing that you're going to do. So for me, in a way, it's kind of good to be able to change and do something different, because I have been like the DOO, the daily operations person, for a long time. And so it's kind of hard for me sometimes to create being in the same place. And in the beginning, when we started RumBullets, we would travel around and film on location and go on the bikes and to the beach, and that was back when I was able to surf and did some paddleboard and stuff like that. We had a lot of fun doing that then, and so the show became more, or sorry, the platform became more about the show later as a promotional thing. So I spent a lot of time like honing my craft. I wasn't planning on being a show host when this all started. Like, it kind of went to that because you have to have a way to promote your product. And so we were Pirate Apparel Boat Clothing, and I have a background in surfing and the boat world and stuff like that. So I thought it would be kind of fun to keep doing the show as the promotional thing, when really, and I had different ideas of what we were going to do in the beginning. So one of the things that we did do was we all kind of had different jobs and stuff. And one of the cool things about my job was I got to do a lot of research and look at other people's content and see what was good about their content, or what I liked, and how it helped me create my own show. One of the things I like about this subject of paranormal, that's why I named it the Galactic Island show, because, you know, when you travel and you adventure, to me there's like nothing cooler than, well, the idea of going to different places or experiencing different people in different places. So the idea of extraterrestrial life is very, it's just this unknown world of what could this really be. So I want to definitely put some of my ideas out there. People may agree, they may not, they might have their own ideas, or they might think all of it's just phony baloney. But I really do think that this subject is because I've watched it just change over the years, go from, you know, conspiracy stories, and then, you know, all of a sudden to like legitimate people writing books about it, and doing interviews with people that were involved in things that just were like beyond this world, right? Like out of this world. So that's one of the other things too, is I have like a lifetime of watching this subject unfold. And to me, like, that's one of the coolest things about what I was able to do with my platform, was I was able to spin and kind of cheat and look at, you know, because part of my job was to you know, critique movies and talk about, you know, movies and stuff. So I would spend extra time being able to check out some of the things I thought were really cool, and maybe that back, you know, 20 years ago, this subject was kind of like taboo, where now it's definitely more socially accepted. Like, people, I think, have grown to accept that we don't know everything. That even the scientists that study the subject, which there's not a lot of scientists that actually study the subject, there's just groups of people that say this is real and this is what we think it is. So you do have a few different groups. That's another thing that's very interesting about it. Dr. Greer has his own ideas on what all this is and how to approach it, where some groups are like, this is something we don't want to discuss, or to bring it to us because it could be dangerous. So I think that not sticking your head in the sand is a very bad idea with the subject. I think that people and influencers will more and more discuss their own experiences. The more the subject is out there, more of the whistleblowing will start happening, and it's going to get really interesting when finally there's just no way that they can brush it under the rug, because that's going to come. It's going to come to a point where they can't do that anymore. So, with that being said, we can get on to a different part of this. I don't know if I'll have a script for this show, or I'll just be discussing the subject of paranormal. But part of the, like I said before, me being able to share my music on the show is what I originally started writing music for the show. I was playing music since I was little, and my mother was a pianist, and so growing up we were around music a lot, or it was encouraged to be in music. One of the things that I kind of did in my music was there was a lot of influences, or as far as like what I was writing about in some of my songs was about this subject, because when you're wanting to discuss something that's like this big of a subject, you can't just like kind of come out there and be like, hey, I want to just talk about UFOs, because people will kind of just blow you off as a weirdo, right? Well, like I said, it has changed over the years, but that was one of the ways that I did approach the subject, was in a lot of my music, and you can probably see it if you go through some of my song lists, things that are related to the subject, because it kind of every time I think about it, it pulls me in. So I'm looking forward to being able to share my music, and maybe I'll discuss some of that too with this new platform, this new show that I'm doing. And yeah, I'm excited to do it. And if you get a chance to check out Dr. Greer, please tell him Web Captain Drew sent you. He has all kinds of documentaries, and has a YouTube channel, of course, and he's got his own website. He has all kinds of information, and I think that a lot of his information is really probably true. So, in this subject, you can have a lot of times, especially now with AI, which I don't use any AI in my music or my show, as far as my my videos, like my music videos and stuff. That's all stuff that I have created myself with my own artwork and stuff. I have used AI to see how it works, and like use it with like one of my art projects, and it's very interesting. And I think like that is also a sign that like kind of some of this technology that we have probably goes back and is related to this subject. Maybe that's how we got a lot of this technology, like the phone that I'm recording on right now, right? Like, we went from being a race of people that can barely pull a cart and wheel, we didn't have even the wheel, up until, for the last millennia or so. So, and then we go from an industrializing society to this technological jump in like 100 years. It's pretty weird if you think about it. Like, so I do think that I'm not a skeptic at all. So if you're looking to get the skeptical view, I'm not going to do that in this. I may discuss some of the skeptic views, because there are some good points out there. Like with AI, there's a lot of fake videos floating around on the internet. You don't know anymore if you're looking at something that's real, or maybe something that was created with computer CGI. So that's really kind of hard too for people in the ufology community, because they don't have the golden nugget yet that they can really just be like, here it is, we don't need to explain anymore. So until that happens, you have to fight the technology that could create something to fool people as a ruse. But I'm not a skeptic, and I am looking forward to sharing my ideas about the whole thing. And one of the things we need to do as the human race evolves is we need to get out of war. War is really bad. I think that a lot of people in the ufology community believe that one of the reasons why we started seeing a lot of having these interactions with some of the UAPs was because they were afraid we were going to blow the entire planet to smithereens. So I think that it's very important. It's very important to have a military, but it's very important to have a military for security reasons. And war is just a thing that's outdated, a thing of the past. So I do agree with Dr. Greer on that. We do, as our world gets more globalized, we do need to spend more time in our communities trying to bring people together, rather than this world we live in where everybody's so segregated on every political idea, and communities, and people need to bond together in order for us to, in case there is a problem where we need to all be one on an idea. So that's my idea for the show. I hope you come back next week and check it out. And wherever I put it, which will probably be obviously on sparrowradiodotcom, but if you find it somewhere else, hit the like button and tell your friends or your crew about it, and sail on over, check out the website and the other shows that we have. I appreciate you for joining today, and we'll see you on the next. And before I forget, I want to thank Ellie for her idea, and we always want to say hello to our mermaids out there, and especially our sea goddess, Admiral Liz. She's the one that's been behind all of this for a very long time. So definitely want to say shout out to both Liz and Elle. And if you get a chance, definitely go follow them on social media and tell them how much you appreciate all they do for the sea goddesses and the mermaids out there. We love our collaborations, and anybody that is part of that, we want to say thank you to them too. So I'm going to let it go at that and introduce this next song. I don't know what it'll be, but probably whatever fits into the show. But I hope you like it, and we'll see you later.